Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I am really excited to be diving in deep to talk about Colleen Ballinger and why. Why did this happen? I'm really excited to talk about this specifically. A lot of people have covered what happened, but I want to dive deeper and talk about why. Why did Colleen do the things that she did? Why is she lying about it? Why is she not apologizing? How is it that she could do these things to minors? I want to get into all of this, and I'm going to end the video. Stick around for the end where we talk about the gaslighting and manipulation tactics that she used in her video. And with me today, I have helping me out my brother, Parker. Thanks for being here. I'm really, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm really excited to cover this because, like I said, a lot of people have covered what has happened, but I haven't seen a lot of people covering why these things happened in the way that they did. So I'm excited to give you guys my opinion, my speculation. Obviously, I don't know Colleen personally. I don't know any of the fans personally, so I can't for sure say what's true, what's not true. All I can do is speculate based off the information that I have found. And um, really quick as a note on why are we qualified to speak on this? My brother and I have had a lot of experiences with people who I would consider narcissistic or like on that spectrum of narcissism. And because of that, we've had a lot of experiences that have helped us with an interesting perspective on this, I would say. So I'm excited. So thanks for being here, bro.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into it. The first question I want to answer is what would cause someone to do what Colleen did, right? And when I say what would cause, what I'm referring to specifically is her having these parasocial relationships with these young, vulnerable teenagers that were her fans and having these unhealthy relationships with them and messaging with them, oversharing with them, looking to them for validation, gaslighting and manipulating them. Why would this happen? And I want to start with saying that, in my opinion, she might be a narcissist. Now, I can't diagnose her with that. I'm not a therapist, but I think she might be a narcissist. And I want to tell you why I think that. If you don't know what narcissism is, it has to do with a person being very selfish in some cases, a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy is usually the big thing that you notice with them, a need for admiration, self-centeredness. All of these things can be encapsulated within narcissism. And again, there's a spectrum. In my opinion, you can be a much worse narcissist or a much better narcissist. And when I refer to Colleen as a potential narcissist, I don't mean this as a dig at her because I think there's a lot of people that have this idea in their head that the term narcissist is used often to villainize people like, oh, well, they're such a terrible person, they're a narcissist. And what I mean when I use that term is that it's possible that she's someone that has so much shame that she doesn't know how to deal with that she's created a delusion to help her cope with her shame, and that delusion is keeping her from being honest. It's keeping her from really recognizing the severity of what she's done. So that, to kind of preface it with that. Another reason why I think she might be a narcissist, well, just to throw out a few reasons, is the lies. She's been caught in so many lies. That's typical narcissistic behavior. The need for validation. There's a screenshot. Let me pull it up here where in her group chat, oh, here it goes. I would love for this thing to cooperate. Well, it's not going to cooperate, but it was a screenshot that just says everyone, she says into her group, everyone hates me. And of course, all her followers start responding, no, that's not true. So that's clear need for validation, clear insecurity there, lack of taking accountability. And these are all just things that narcissists tend to have. So that's kind of So the first question, what would cause someone to do what Colleen did? Well, if they're a narcissist, it could cause some of these things. Parker, do you have any thoughts about that opening
Yeah,
statement?
and I'm sorry, you can probably hear there's a dog in the background drinking like water super loudly. So if you hear that, that's what that is. Um, I first off want to say like us talking about this, the why Colleen Ballinger went into this or has done some terrible things is not us saying at all that it's okay that it was done. There are probably reasons Hitler did the things he did. Does that make it okay? Not at all. This is not us saying, oh, what she did was fine because, she had mental problems or she had, like, that's not exactly the way we're going about it. But to think, okay, there was definitely pitfalls that happened here. And this is something that can be repeated again and again if we don't address the root cause. We've talked about the bad things that have happened, but to talk about the why these bad things have happened, I think is a totally different conversation. So it's really neat to go in there and say, hey, okay, what's going on actually with her brain? Like, how does her brain functioning in this moment? And to touch on a little bit, you've talked about that need for validation. Narcissists really, really care about their image first and foremost. They want to look really good in any situation, and it makes me think like, if I was in such a bad situation where everyone was calling me out, the only way to make myself still look good amidst the bad things happening, because if I admit, oh, I did wrong, that's taking accountability, and that's going to make me look bad because I actually did do something wrong. But if I were to say, no, I'm a victim here, then you need to feel bad for me. And you need to feel more bad for me. And that's going to make me look even better than before because people love a good victim story. And I don't know. I don't know if you want to jump off of that, but that's just a little bit that I wanted to say.
Yeah, I really like that you pointed out that with a narcissist, you have their need for validation takes precedence over everything else. And it's because of their damaged self-worth, their damaged self-esteem, that they are so desperate for that validation that they have a hard time looking outside of themselves to have empathy with anyone else because they're so caught up in their own pain, in their own fears, in their own issues, that it's like they start to create this facade, and then that holding up that facade becomes the most important thing they can do. And like you said, this isn't to excuse her behavior at all, but to understand, why does someone do something like this? One thing I want to point out too, as far as like what would cause someone to do what Colleen did, one thing I want to point out is that fame can destroy people. It can destroy strong people, but it can obliterate weak people. And when I say weak, what I mean is someone who isn't um who isn't strong in their morals, who isn't strong in their personal views on who they are as a person, on what they want. Oh my goodness. I gotta show these comments really quick. Team Colleen for life. Adam is a liar. He is a clout gobbling. Wow, that isn't that there are a lot of people that agree with you. So that is really interesting. All right. So ultimately what I'm talking about here, fame can destroy people. And if you think about Colleen and her background, she's someone who clearly has a lot of insecurities, and for someone like her to arrive at a lot of fame, there's going to be a lot of mental and stuff involved with the fame that she has no idea how to handle. So I just want to paint that picture because, again, so many of us are like, I just don't understand how this could happen. But if you understand someone insecure suddenly getting hundreds, thousands, millions of followers, that does something to a person's psyche that we still have no idea how to comprehend ultimately, because we the social media is still so new. We don't really understand all the ramifications involved with getting such a big following. But certainly it's hard on someone who would be a strong person, but even harder on someone who is weak. Parker, did you want to say something about that?
I completely agree. It does beg to wonder, like, I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but we know that like she's reached out to like young fans and things like that, which is in the way that she's gone about it seems to not be in the best best of maybe intentions. But you could also think, is this like a cult of personality? Like, did she do these things because she just thought this is what is expected of her to be able to keep that good image? Like, she's not trying to be herself. She's trying to be maybe what she would think people expect her to be. Not saying that what she is being is good, just um, I wonder if that plays into it when you have such a large fan base and you feel like, I mean, it's her career. Like her livelihood depends on her looking good. So, I mean, if you didn't have narcissism before,
Right, right. It almost could make you more narcissistic, I imagine. Yeah, I certainly think that's a possibility. Okay, so the next question I want to cover is how could she do these things to young teens? Having these inappropriate relationships with them over social media, over sharing, the gaslighting, the manipulating, having, young teens looking at gossip sites for her and things like that, and helping run her social media for free, all those things. Um, so first thing I want to say about this is that if she is narcissistic, or maybe a little bit narcissistic at least, she isn't thinking about their age at all when she's interacting with them. All she's thinking about is getting that validation from them. She could care less if they were young or old, right? Her audience was mostly young just based off her humor, but she doesn't care whether they're young or old. She just needs the validation and attention in order to help kind of bolster her own inner damaged self esteem and self worth. So it's in my mind, there's a lot of people like, oh, taking this to an extreme, saying like, oh, she's just someone who wants to hurt kids or whatever, and I don't agree with that. I think that she's someone who's really, really insecure, and that all of the attention got the best of her because it feels good getting attention. We all love getting attention. We all actually need attention. But when you are really, really damaged as a child, maybe mentally or emotionally, then that need can spiral out of control into this thing that makes you do things that you otherwise wouldn't do, like manipulate people and lie to people in order to try to receive that validation. Thoughts on that, Parker?
uh, it just it just makes me wonder, like, how far are people going to go to get that validation? And um I don't want to keep like repeating myself, but it just like it really seems to hit on the head when you play that victim card instead of owning up, because that's just going to get you like those extra, like, oh, well, this is the extra validation I need. I need people to know that I'm not a terrible person. And just like she had tweeted,
Yeah.
you mentioned the tweet like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. Well, when she made that like 10-minute video going in depth about how they were not true, or insinuating that everything were lies, and well, at least you're getting entertainment out of this. It's like, oh man, now I feel bad for her. Like, and I feel bad that I ever thought she was,
Mhm.
you know, not wrong here. Um,
Yeah, I actually wanna get more into that at the
mhm.
end when we talk more about the gaslighting too. That's a perfect example of it. Okay, so what how could she do this thing to such young teens? People are wondering. Um, in part, she thinks from her perspective, maybe, I'm speculating, that she's doing them a favor. Now, put your shoes in her mind for a second. Imagine that again, you're someone who feels insecure. You don't feel very good about yourself. Maybe you don't have many friends. Maybe you don't feel like you have much to offer to the world, but suddenly you have all these people flooding you with love and attention, and they are all offering you help. Then there's this weird, like, psychological response to that would be like, "Oh my gosh, like, all these people wanna help me, I feel so important, I feel so cared about, like, and yes, I would love the help," like, and you think that you're doing them a favor because they're so excited to help, right? Any 13, 14-year-old would be so excited to help their hero, right? And if they're so excited to help you, you feel like you're doing them a favor by letting them help you, right? Is it wrong? Yes, you should not allow fans to help you create your material, and especially if they're underage. It's unprofessional, it's inappropriate, but again, understanding where she's coming from is that at the time, she might have thought, "Oh, they want to help. So how am I the bad guy? They offered to help." So just like keeping that in mind that again, it was wrong to do, but that might be where her head was at the time.
Yeah, and like I don't know if I saw like a super popular celebrity like in a restaurant or something like I don't know exactly what I would do, but I feel like a lot of people would be honored to even like be able to like, oh, buy him a drink or something. Like, if he's at a bar, like, oh, send him a drink, send him a drink. That's so fun. But also to think like Colleen Ballinger, like, she's very, very famous. Like, she's not bad off when it comes to money. And so using other people in this type of way, you definitely have to what is the word I'm thinking? You have to rationalize a little bit of why you're doing this because like you definitely can afford to pay someone to take care of these things because again it becomes a business after a certain point. She's doing
Yeah.
live shows and going out. So this isn't just her herself and somebody's helping her. This is way larger than that. So
Yeah.
maybe in her head she could be thinking, "Oh, well this isn't that big. This is just my thing." She could be lying to herself about that too and not really taking into consideration, no, if you were a CEO of a company, which you are basically, it's your brand is you, um, you're an entertainment business. Uh, this would not fly, and you would think it was terrible if any other billionaire started using kids to run their social media pages. That would not be accepted. So in this situation, just in comparison, it's like, oh, but you really have to consider it in that kind of light.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to share a little clip from her song now. Sorry for everyone that's seen it 1,000 times. I've been sharing my life online for over 15 years. I poured my heart out to you because I feel like I'm talking to my friends, but in the beginning of my career, I didn't really understand that maybe there should be some boundaries there. There were times in the DMs when I would overshare details of my life, which is really weird to me. I haven't done that for years, you see, because I changed my behavior and I took accountability. But that's not very interesting, is it? So I wanted to show that little section here. Oh, let me get us back up. Because right here, she says, I changed my behavior and I took accountability. Now, you'd have to define taking accountability in this situation, right? Because as far as I can tell, she's never apologized to her fans specifically that felt manipulated or neglected or hurt by her, right? And I would think that, taking accountability would certainly involve apologizing to those people, if not publicly, at least directly. And surely, if she had apologized to them um, directly, we would have heard about it. So, why? This is the question I want to go with this clip. Why is she lying when she's caught red-handed? And that little clip right there, that I changed my behavior and I took accountability. Right? She's saying, oh, this was something that happened a long time ago and I stopped doing it and I took accountability for it, right? But as far as we can tell, there wasn't really any accountability taken for it, and that these things were happening until pretty recently. And so, why is that? And one thing I want to point out about that is that if she is narcissistic, narcissists will create delusions in their mind that they end up actually somewhat believing. Okay. And it's usually based in a little bit of truth. And that's why they're able to believe it. So, for example, if she says that she stopped doing this thing with the fans, maybe she toned it back. And so, in her mind, that was correcting the behavior. And maybe she did make improvements, but there was still problematic stuff going on. And so ultimately it's like, okay, this is clearly a lie, but also maybe there's some truth in it, and that's why she thinks she can say it and that people will believe it.
It makes me think of like clocking in for work almost, and that sounds weird probably at first, but if I don't know, a lot of people have worked like virtually at this point, and if you're logging your own hours, sometimes you'll like look at the clock and be like, wait, when did I first sit down here? I think it was 25 minutes ago, because that sounds about right. When there's a chance that you might have only been there for 10 minutes and just not even realized, right? And instead of just being completely honest, you kind of like twist yourself into believing this lie. And I think she's doing it, to a little bit more of an extreme. But I would agree. I do think that she thinks it's true. Like when she says that, I don't know that she's lying to lie. I think she's lying to herself, to avoid accountability. She says that she did. Oh, well, I took accountability for that. I changed. And that makes her feel great. But like, if you were actually empathetic towards other people, I think this would be one of those moments where you say, I need to actually like reach out to that person specifically and like apologize. But like all these people that are going out and being like, hey, you abused me when I was young, this was not fair. uh it's like, this is
And
not accountability at all.
a
This is not.
and her response is, "I'm not doing it anymore." So right,
Yeah, like
right.
robbing the bank. You could steal $100,000 and be like, well, I took accountability because I stopped doing it.
I
no
stopped
one
robbing banks, right.
no one would agree with that. No one.
Exactly.
I do think that is a silly way to look at it.
It's the same thing with physical abuse, if you had someone that was physically hurting you and you go to them and you say, "Hey, you were hitting me as a kid or when we were married or something," and that was wrong, and if they responded, "Well, I'm not hitting you anymore," that doesn't fix the wound, right? I think for healing to take place, um, there has to be acknowledgement. And the problem for a narcissist is that they often don't have the ability to acknowledge the pain that they caused. And it's because their delusion is so thick to protect themselves that they can't really connect with the severity of what happened. And this is why you'll see them minimize the problem or outright deny it. One of the two, right? So like you said, on some level, it's hard to say because the mind of a narcissist is so complicated, but she may believe that she's being honest in some respect because of the delusion that she has set up in order to protect herself. And the delusion is that image of herself. You'll hear narcissists say things like, that doesn't sound like something I would do. That doesn't sound like something I would say. It's along those kinds of lines.
Yeah, I love that. Sounds like I've watched a lot of interrogation videos, but people will be like, "Oh, well, not that I can remember." They'll say things like that, because they're gaslighting themselves and they're gaslighting everyone else. And if you can gaslight yourself into believing it, then you become a lot more convincing. Not saying that she is very convincing in this, just when there's so much evidence against her. But if there wasn't, then I don't know. I don't know what people would think at this point. But yeah, thank you, Morgan. That was I thought that was pretty insightful.
Thank you. So, why is she lying when she's caught red handed? To touch on that a little more, nothing is more important to a narcissist than maintaining an image. And even in the face of facts and proof, they will continue to deny the truth. Why? Because that makes us feel crazy. That makes me feel insane when that happens because I've had those kinds of interactions with narcissists before where I'm like, "Here's what you did," and they will straight up deny it, and it blows my mind. I'm like, "Do you genuinely believe that?" It makes me wonder. Um, but the answer is, okay, why is it that they can lie even when proof is right in front of their face? And the answer is because they have to. Because their whole worldview is built around this fake image of themselves that they've created and that they have defended like nothing else. And they cannot let that crumble. They can't bolster themselves against the weight of their own shame if this image of themselves were to crumble. So they will deny, they will lie, they will straight up change the past in order to keep that view of themselves that they feel that they need to keep. And it's quite sad, and I will say that it's quite frustrating for anyone involved in with anyone that may have narcissistic tendencies, because you can't make progress in a relationship with someone who cannot admit um the truth ultimately, and cannot, face the facts of reality, and confront the severity of their decision making, and the consequences that followed it. Um, yeah, so why is she lying? Because she feels like she has to maintain her own image of herself on some level, and then, of course, the image that everybody else sees her as too. So I wanna transition now into why won't she actually apologize, right? Why won't she actually apologize? And actually, maybe we'll flip this order, because I'm realizing as we're going through this, it might be better to hit on the gaslighting and manipulating before, because then it makes a little bit more sense as to how these were non-apologies, right? So let's talk a little bit about the gaslighting and manipulation that she used in her video. And if you didn't watch her video, I recommend going to watch it. I purposely didn't include the whole thing in this video just because I thought everyone had seen it a million times, but we did get a couple comments that people hadn't seen it. So maybe go check that out first.
I don't know that I
Okay.
recommend watching it, but yeah.
So let's talk about the gaslighting and manipulation tactics in that video. So first thing you notice right off the bat, and I'll just show um, this beginning clip here. Let's see. Okay, how do I get it? Oh, nope, that wasn't it. I'm gonna figure it out. Oh, Parker's gone. Nope, nope. There it is. Look at her making herself as small as she can, slouching forward, head down, making herself really small. Yeah, making herself as small as possible, right? And the reason I wanna point that out is that that is a manipulation tactic. If I make myself seem small, people are less likely to attack, right? Because they'll feel bad. They'll think I'm not a worthy opponent. They'll think that they would feel bad to attack me in this state. So making herself small, right? And again, this is all her trying to defend herself, defend her image, defend the image of herself she's created in her mind. It's all a self-defense thing. um, a lot of people think that manipulation is intentional, but that is not always the case. She may feel in doing this that she's being very sincere, but of course, the problem with manipulation is that it's not okay in place of acknowledgement and apologies when you've done something wrong, right? It's okay to say I'm having a hard time because of ABC. It's not okay to say, well, I'm having a hard time with ABC, so your problems that I did to you don't matter, right? And that's the biggest problem with her apology is, yeah, I did some stuff, but my life sucks now. And it's like, okay, true, it does suck now, but that doesn't acknowledge their pain that was caused by you at all whatsoever.
Well, and if they are actually a narcissist, like they don't have the ability to empathize with other people having a hard time. They feel their own emotion, they come first. That is the important thing. And maybe in some twisted way, they're thinking, yeah, I know that I screwed you over, but now you really screwed me over. This is my entire livelihood. I may have used you a little bit, but you are crushing me right now. And that's not okay. Like,
Yes.
and so there's probably some rationalization with that, going back to like gaslighting herself into thinking like, well, I may have done some bad things, but that's not, it doesn't mean that it's okay to like just go off on me. Yeah, I stole $100,000, but it's not fair to put me in jail for 10 years. Like that's ridiculous. I stole it in one day. Like that's all right.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, so another gaslighting and manipulation tactic that she uses in here is the minimizing and denying, right? She goes back and forth in the video between minimizing what happened to her fans and straight up denying it. There's several times where she says that these are lies, these are rumors, these are gossip, these are over exaggerated claims, but never specifies, to what extent, just leaves it vague, right? And probably for a reason, because there's so much evidence out there. I don't know how, she could combat that. But then there's the minimizing. You notice there's that part where she talks about the fart joke, that everyone's mad at her because she made a fart joke. And it's like, no, I understand why in her mind she can minimize it. And actually, I want to talk more about that when we get into the apology section. But she's trying to minimize it. It was just a fart joke. It was just a fart joke. That was the intent, right? But that wasn't what happened. Another quote from the chorus is, "I won't survive in the crash, but hey, at least you're having fun." Now, this is all aimed to get you to feel bad for her, right? Because if you feel bad for her, then it might take your mind off of what she did wrong. And ultimately, she probably doesn't realize the severity of what she's done wrong. But this is all trying to garner sympathy, to garner attention and validation, and not taking accountability.
Yeah, I,
Um,
I, I sorry, I want to interject. I also don't
Please.
know that it's just saying, hey, feel bad for me, but I think it's also like, how dare you? How dare you have fun when I'm suffering? Because I'm
Yeah,
hurting here. So it's not even just feel. I mean, yeah, it is feel bad for me, but at the same time, it's also like, well, how dare you feel bad that you caused this? You're the issue too.
you're
And
right.
and it's like,
There's
geez,
there's malice coming through with
she
that.
blamed everybody. Like, if you're watching this video right now, she is blaming you too. I'm sorry, but that's the way that she was going. If you're having fun listening to a conversation about this, well, I'm dying, so at least you're having fun. And
I'm
it's like,
suffering and
goodness.
it's your fault because
Hmm.
you're enjoying my demise. Yeah, that's a perfect comment. Thank you. The quote, "Stab me in my bony little back." That's, I'm small and you're hurting me. Here's another quote, "I'm not admitting to rumors that you made up for clout." And I think I paraphrased that one. That's partway into the song, she basically says that, "I'm not gonna apologize for something that someone made up." And that is such an interesting thing to say, because obviously we have the proof that a lot of these fans are not lying, according to, unless all this proof is made up. That So it's interesting that she would assert that, right? But it's planting a seed of doubt in your mind about these people and their intention. Um, and oh, what's that called? It's a specific debate term for that. It's where you attack the person instead of the claim, and it doesn't hold up very strong, of course.
Yeah, it's a fallacy.
Yes, yeah. Um, One thing I want to mention was it. Let's see. Should I show this clip? Yeah, let's show this clip. 5:27. Let's see.
Now, have I made some jokes in poor taste? Yes. Have I made lots of dumb mistakes? Yes. Am I sad that there's some fans who feel betrayed? Yes. Was my intention to manipulate? No.
The point I wanted to point out here was, am I sad I made some fans feel betrayed? That's very much distancing herself from the person that caused the pain, right? Instead of saying, "Am I sad that I hurt some of my fans? Am I sad that I did things that hurt my fans?" There's no accountability in that sentence. Am I sad some fans feel betrayed? That's putting it all on them, saying that it's all their perspective and that it's nothing that I did wrong, not taking any accountability at all in that situation.
She was so close to just saying like something that like was a little bit of accountability, but yeah, she missed it. And I want to point out, like, was it my intention to manipulate? It doesn't matter. Did you manipulate or not? That's the thing that matters. She's like deflecting the question by saying, "Well, it wasn't my intention." Did
Mhm.
you could find someone's phone on the ground that they dropped, and it's their phone, and you take it, and like, was it your intention to steal it from them? Probably not. You just picked it up and we're like, oh yeah, this is my phone. But if you kept it and never returned it, did you steal it? Yes, you did. Whether it was your intention or not, you stole it. That is what
Yeah,
happened. And
exactly.
whether or not she meant to manipulate these people, which I don't know if she has the insight to be able to say, oh, I'm going to manipulate this person. Being a narcissist, I don't know if that's on the front of your mind. You're probably just thinking, what makes me look the best? But in this situation,
And
she's
how
just
can I get what I want? Yeah.
exactly what can I do? In her mind, she's like, well, what can I do to get what I need? And she's not
Yes,
thinking about them as individuals. So was it her intention to manipulate? Maybe not.
exactly.
Maybe she's
It
telling the truth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change that she did it or not. Yeah.
it doesn't make the other behavior right or okay. So another quote I want to point out was she says toward the end of the song, around 9 minutes, "Sometimes people make a mistake and it doesn't make them a bad person." That's absolutely true. But again, this is a deflection from taking accountability. This is a common narcissistic technique. "Well, I am not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I never claim to be perfect." It's like, okay, yes, but stop pulling away from this specific instance that we're talking about. But it's almost like they just, are incapable of doing so because mentally they just cannot see it in the same way that we do because they're trying so hard to protect themselves.
I
Um
think a good example, and sorry to cut you off, but like I'm sure everyone's seen a little bit of this in their own life. If you've ever had a friend or a family member be like, "Oh well, I'm sorry, I'm not uh, good enough for you," or I'm sorry, I'm a bad mom," or "I'm sorry, I'm a bad dad," or a bad friend. Like when someone says something like that, that's also a deflection, because they're not thinking about you at that instant. They're just thinking about how dare you be upset at me for me doing something
Exactly.
wrong, you know?
Exactly.
Hopefully that, if you're upset for a valid reason, but like it is such a deflection, and it feels a little bit like she's doing that um almost the entire video.
Emphasizing the backlash she's gotten from this was something she did a lot in the song, and it's okay to talk about the backlash, but it's not okay to do so that you don't have to apologize. "Feel bad for me, this is so hard for me, this sucks for me," that's what you hear a lot in the song as she's like, "Even though I didn't mean harm, I feel like shit, and millions of people are saying the most vile things they can be saying about me." And it's like, yes, this does suck for you. I'm sure this is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. But that doesn't mean you weren't in the wrong. And it doesn't mean that saying that can be an excuse for bad behavior.
Yeah, you'd think like I don't know, there's this idea out there that suffering is a repentance. Not I'm not trying to get into religion, but I mean like the actual word, like making up for your wrongdoings is okay if you suffer. Oh, well, I suffered enough. But
Yes.
people don't want you to suffer. I mean, some do, but like people don't want you to suffer. People want you to make it right. And
Exactly.
you just saying, well, people are saying vile things about me is not making it right.
Yeah.
Should they be saying vile things about you? Probably
No.
not. No, I don't agree with that. I think that's a wrong way to go about it. Um, but yeah, it doesn't excuse anything else that happened, and it's not actually making anything right in the world. You are just complaining, and I like what you're saying, Morgan. Like, yeah, it does suck. There is a lot of truth in here, which does make me think, okay, maybe this is like a more of a narcissistic thing, because narcissists love to put the truth and then just stretch it so far,
Yep.
to make it sound real. When she said, um, oh goodness, what was it? People made up lies about me. People are making up rumors about me. I'm sure that there is someone out there that made up a rumor, and I'm sure there's a few
Oh
people that did.
yes,
It's the
I'm
internet.
sure there's a lot of people that have.
And I'm sure she saw
Yeah.
those and were like, oh, I'm going to use this as the example. But I don't
Yes.
know that many people are talking about those examples, right?
Yes, see, and I want to get into that even deeper, actually. So I'm going to interrupt you and say, why won't she actually apologize? Okay, because that is perfect segue into this. She believes, like you were just saying, you were pretty much like hitting on all these points. She thinks she's the victim. The narrative, the story in her mind is very different from what we are seeing. What we see is she did this bad thing to these fans. Why won't she apologize? What she's seeing is she thinks she's a good person who's, yeah, made some minor mistakes, right? And again, in her mind, she's minimizing the mistakes to protect her self worth, her self esteem, and her self image, who's made some minor mistakes, who doesn't deserve to have her life completely torn apart for those mistakes. And like you said, it feels like the punishment, again, in her mind, the punishment is way worse than the crime. And because of that, that might be one of the reasons why she won't apologize. And like you said, another reason she might apologize is that she doesn't think the mistakes are as big as other people do. And you can see that, like we talked about the fart joke example, right? She can take this example in her mind and be like, it's just a fart joke. This is not a big deal. How are people blowing this up into me being this terrible person? But what she's not thinking about is how Becca felt on stage, having her legs spread and feeling so vulnerable and uncomfortable, right? And she could think to herself, I intended this as a fart joke, but putting myself in Becca's shoes, I can say, wow, I would be quite uncomfortable with my legs spread on stage, not wearing very much clothes. I would be uncomfortable. But she can't make that leap, I don't think, because she's too caught up in feeling sorry for herself because of all the backlash she's receiving that she feels is unjustified and unwarranted. And like you said, she's taking, in my mind, what's probably happening is she's taking some of the worst made up rumors and saying, these are not true, so I can discount everything. Because these fake rumors are not true, I can discount everything because I know these are fake, so I can just trust that all the little ones are fake too. And so this is allowing herself to put herself on this pedestal of um persecution, essentially. Like, oh, I'm being treated so unfairly, they're saying these horrible things to me, and she's so caught up in that world that I'm sure that she doesn't have an ounce of empathy to give to the fans that she genuinely caused a lot of grief to, and again, unintentionally, but still.
I honestly don't feel like I have too much to add to that. I think that was really well said.
Thank
Also,
you.
yeah, I loved Mama Joe's comment about them being, they'll believe you're just as manipulative as they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It,
that's important to keep in context because that would explain why she's so hard on Adam, potentially, because she might be thinking that he's just trying to keep his image up just as much as she is, and that might not be reality, right? She might be projecting herself onto him in this situation. Um, I wanted to talk about, let's see, specifically, okay, why won't she apologize? One of the big things she brought up in her song was that she believes that because she didn't intend any harm, that that is sufficient. And that is good. It's great that she didn't intend the harm, right? That's such a good thing. It's great when people don't intend to do something wrong. The problem is most everybody is a good person that doesn't intend harm but does it anyway. And it's usually because either A, you're hurting and you're lashing out at others, or B, you don't realize that what you're doing is hurting someone, or something along those lines. So in her mind, she can be vindicated or proclaim herself innocent by saying, I had no bad intentions. I believe her when she says she had no bad intentions, especially with the bad intentions that people are placing on her, like saying that she just is someone who likes to abuse kids. I don't think that's it at all. I think she's someone who's hurting, who's desperate for love and attention and validation. And because of that, she's not in a good place mentally. So she's going to do and say things that just aren't the healthiest, right? That just aren't the most mature. And it's going to cause a lot of pain. It's going to cause a lot of problems. So it's important to recognize that bad intentions, that having good intentions doesn't mean a whole lot, like you were saying. Good intentions are great, but that doesn't mean that you don't apologize when you've made a mistake that has hurt people.
I feel like I should fill the silence, but I'd just be repeating myself.
No, you're good. I want to paint this picture because narcissists don't wake up in the morning and say to themselves, "How can I manipulate and gaslight and hurt everyone in my house today?" They don't wake up saying that. The end game for them is about getting what they want, getting it when they want it, and getting the validation they need and maintaining their image. And it's all going to be shrouded in this urgency of intensity. Like, I need this right now. I need this validation. I need this trip to Hawaii. I need this posts for my Twitter to be created. I need these things. And they will manipulate other people in order to satiate their own sense of urgency that's coming from within this place of hurt.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, it's okay for her to point out that she didn't have bad intentions, but you should probably couple that with like a legitimate apology. Like, I didn't intend to hurt these fans, but I did. I didn't realize at the time what I was doing was wrong. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, so sorry.
No, you're good. So there's just a couple other things I wanted to touch on before we close the video. Let's see. Oh, we already talked about the Adam one. Let's see. Okay, here's the one of the last clips I want to share is at 9:10.
Sometimes people can make a mistake, and you don't have to take that mistake, oh no. And twist it up and grind it and add some lies to it and pulverize it and stab it with knives and ruin a life. And oh no, sometimes people can make a mistake. It doesn't mean you gotta send them hate, oh no. Sometimes people can make a mistake, and you can kindly let them know and help them to grow.
So I want to point out a couple things with this. First of all, she's right. You don't need to send people hate because they made a mistake. And I agree that the internet is a terrible, horrible place where you will receive terrible backlash. Even if it's a justifiable, like, you made a mistake, people will send you things telling you to unalive yourself, telling you you don't deserve to breathe air. And those are horrible, horrible things to say to a human being. And especially through the lens of realizing that all narcissists are just very mentally ill. And that, of course, it doesn't excuse their behavior, but again, it explains it. And even though they are mentally ill, they can grow and they can learn. But on that note, where she says, kindly let them know and help them to grow, the problem with that, especially with narcissists, is that people don't like to change. People do not like to change. People do not like criticism. Oftentimes, people will not change unless they absolutely have to. Most people will not change unless they have to. And even some who are pushed to this point of like, if you don't change, I'm divorcing you, or I'm, whatever, I'm leaving you, or not going to be your friend anymore, they still won't change. So some people push to that boundary of like, you need to change or else, still won't change. Um, change is really, really hard. It's hard for everybody, but it's especially hard for narcissists. And there's a reason for that. And the reason that it's so hard for them to change is because of that delusion that they've set up in order to protect themselves. And does it make their bad behavior okay? Absolutely not. But it does give us insight as to why these people act in the way that they do. And it can give us a little bit of compassion to understand that they are struggling mentally and that may be caught, like maybe the reason for some of their justifications of the things that they're doing. And it can also help us to not take it so personally. Ultimately, if you have narcissists in your life that have treated you badly or made you feel badly, hopefully understanding them better can help you to take whatever they've said or done to you less personally and realize like, hey, they're hurting. This really isn't about me. This is totally separate from me. And if you can separate yourself from them and their pain, then you can move forward more easily in your own life with your own maybe bad experiences with narcissists. Any closing thoughts, Parker?
Yeah, just like with narcissism, I think like anytime you're going to confront a narcissist on anything, you can expect there to be lying, and for someone who, is as big as Colleen Ballinger, she's going to try everything she can, to be able to keep her image. I mean, it's also her livelihood, to a very large extent. And I'm not saying that it makes it okay, but it does give you a little bit of maybe sympathy for her as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying, just because you did something wrong doesn't mean that you don't deserve sympathy either. We don't know why she's a narcissist. Is this just something that her brain is? Did she have a bad childhood growing up? Was she neglected? Like, we don't know what's going into it. And so to sit here and like, even though she has done some terrible, terrible things that I don't think we should just like forget about, I think she was right that we don't need to go and start hating to a large extent. But should we forget and just let it go? I don't think that's true either. She would like us to do that, but I don't think that's the healthy way to go about it. I think calling them out is probably the right thing to do, even though it's going to be a pain every single time, because they're going to have a hard time owning up to it every time.
Yeah, ultimately, my perspective on it is that I don't think there's ever really a good reason to send people hate online. I do think there's a good reason to expose people, because I think exposing people can shed light on things and it can um, encourage better behavior. I think ultimately, with Colleen, even if she were to give a very, very sincere, spot on apology, acknowledging everything, I don't know that people would believe her. I don't know that it would be sincere. And that's the one thing that's kind of tricky about internet drama is that you get people in these messy situations and then you see these apologies, but you're never really going to know whether they're being sincere or not. Ultimately, I don't think that it's ever okay to send hate to people, but I do think that in this situation that Colleen did hurt her fans and I think she betrayed them. I don't think she did it intentionally, but I think that because she was hurting, she did take advantage of them and I wish that she would be able to acknowledge that so that she could move past it and not do it anymore in any future relationships. And hopefully she has, and hopefully she will, but certainly that wasn't the impression I got from the video, but it's impossible to say, what her personal relationships look like right now.
Hey, who knows? Colleen, if you're watching this somehow, feel free to join. We'd love to do another live stream if we were lucky enough for you to see this.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Parker, for doing this video with me. Thanks everyone for watching. If you want more content that is kind of deep diving into understanding why people are the way they are, understanding why you are the way you are, how to better your life, definitely hit the subscribe button. And I'd love to see you guys again soon. So, peace out.
Bye. Thanks.